used to this backlash. We've become increasingly used to the toxicity that, that characterizes how people react to media reports. And that focus has not shifted from you, unfortunately. That's a tribute to the position you occupy in Indian journalism and the work you've done and the prominence that you've earned over all of these years. But it also speaks of something political. Now, when I was preparing for this interview, I was trying to think about what I might open with, an image that we think of as being so Bharkha dutt, and I was trying to avoid a cliche. It says something about your success and about your career so far that images of you can be cliches. That one has to actually think harder to get beyond what's over-familiar. And luckily your book provides one which is quite wonderful and quite appropriate. This is from the year 2000, when a man named Ruplal, who had spent 26 years in Pakistani prison, was being repatriated. Great success for Indian diplomacy at the moment, because Ruplal, I gather, probably was in fact an Indian spy, and was probably not wrongly accused. In any case, he arrived at Delhi airport, and there was a crowd of journalists waiting to get a piece of him, but he was spirited away through a different exit by RAW. And it was Bharkha, this is very early into your reporting career, who got to that other exit. And since Ruplal was already secreted away in a RAW vehicle, what kind of vehicle was it?
It was a white ambassador.
It was a white ambassador, obviously. She decided that in order to get this story, she would not just stand in front of the ambassador, not just sit on the hood of the ambassador, but sit on top of the ambassador until they let her in. So that's very you. I think that also is that was you setting a pattern that we increasingly both admire and worry about in Indian media, which is of the determination and the tenacity to get a story, as you put yourself, as you say yourself in the book. Nothing, no matter how crazy, would stop you.
Some things would stop me. I would not force a grieving relative to speak if she did not want to. I leave the choice of those who do not have to be exposed. For example, if they've done nothing wrong, you do not doorstep people unless you're exposing something. I'm not comfortable with forcing mics in people's faces unless it's part of a larger expose, right? So for example, if this young woman had chosen to not speak to me, I would not have chased her with the camera. But that she made that choice, I believe that choice deserves agency. But it's very interesting. After 2008, it was my first encounter with how polarizing my work is, right? I have since then grown used to living with love and hate in equal measure. And I don't think people are indifferent to me. I suppose one should be grateful for that. I think I do evoke strong reactions, and I think it's okay, right? It's okay as long as nobody's ignoring you. I don't think I'm easily ignored. But it was interesting because I wasn't used to it. This was my first tryst with a lot of people writing to me, very worthy individuals saying, that was great coverage, and then Facebook groups devoted to we hate Bharkha dutt. Yeah? But I hadn't seen it before. Now it wouldn't even get a reaction out of me. But I had never seen it before. And as you said, it was the kind of beginning of the amplification of hatred on social media. But I want to talk a little bit about this making me synonymous with the media, which I guess at one level should be a compliment, but at another level is absolutely suffocating. And I'll talk about 2611. You know, there was a blogger called Chaitanya Kunte, and I get this question a lot on social media, even today, because I did eventually send him a legal notice. He wrote a blog, among other things, he hated my coverage and all of that, but among other things he said, you know, Bharkha, on the first day she gave away these positions and our brave officer Hemant Kadkare was killed because of this. But on the first day, Bharkha wasn't in Mumbai, she was in Delhi and did not cover the story, right? Now I'm giving you an example of the power of smear. You say something, you repeat it long enough, it gets picked up, it's sitting on the internet, it's sitting there as some version of truth. In the United States of America, when they were analyzing why Donald Trump won, one of the elements they looked at was what's now called fake news, right? And they called it the post-truth society, that you can actually just keep repeating something often enough, it sits on Google, people think it's true, and people believe it. And I think that that was my encounter, first encounter with this post-truth world. difficult. And I'll give you two short examples and I'll hand it back to you. Recently, I spent 2 months covering the situation in the Kashmir Valley, which again, it evokes very fierce reactions. I think my work fits neither the left nor the right, and therefore I kind of tend to get it from both sides. But there was curfew, and nobody was willing to take us anywhere. My usual drivers weren't willing to drive us. So I asked a young guy who's driving a scooter, can you give me a lift? I needed to reach some village that was about 4 hours away from Srinagar. He said, yeah, I can take you on a scooter, no problem, hop on at the back. So that's how we got to this village, we did our story, etc. On Twitter, the extreme right takes this image out, puts me on the back of the scooter, calls this guy, the new Hizbul Mujahideen militant, says I'm on the scooter driving with him through the border to take part in a terror attack. You know, I think it's farcical and I think it's ridiculous, but you will be surprised at the number of times it got shared. Similarly, if you look me up on Wikipedia, I've been married thrice. I have not been married even once, but initially when I was younger, I would try and, like my friends would edit Wikipedia, and then I was just like, screw it. Like, okay, fine, I have 2 husbands, whatever. But this is an example, right? You're ending up, A, the power of smear. B, you're ending up answering for other journalists. I have to answer for myself. How can I answer for media? I am not media, I'm just one person. So in 2611, I can't say that I had no learnings. I can't say that I inadvertently did not make mistakes. Like I said in the beginning, I did not know until the siege was over that there were hunters monitoring this in real time. But I was not there on that first day. And I was written about, my participation in a story was written about which I didn't even cover in the first 12 hours.
So there's some, I want to spend a little bit of time unpacking this with you. But I think that there are at least two aspects of your identity as a journalist that cause you to be the focus, that draw this fire from people who want to take you down. One of them, and we'll come to that later, is that you're a woman. The other is that you do represent this image of a journalist who's always pushing to get in a little bit further than the authorities might want, or that the establishment might want. That's not always the case. Sometimes you're invited up to the front line, as happened in Kargil and has happened again this summer. Other times, you're sitting on top of the ambassador and that's probably a raw guy sitting just weeping and hoping that you will get off. To me, it seems that this isn't, and this connects to the reactions after 2611. It feels to me like a movement, to some extent a concerted movement, to target journalism that represents real enterprise, that represents really pushing past the lines that the authorities want to draw. Is that how it feels to you? Does it increasingly seem like journalists are being... Now, authorities have always, in probably in every regime in every country in the world, wanted to keep journalists, keep the doors closed to journalists. But I think what's happening now is that social media has turned into a proxy tool to punish journalists for asking tough questions and trying to break down those doors, whereas previously, as an extension of media, it should have been supportive of that.
I think that there is a kind of mob intimidation online, or attempts at it, that only the very stubborn, and I would count myself in this, or only people who've been around long enough and are confident in themselves are able to withstand. I have seen younger colleagues in my organization actually go off Twitter because they are not able to deal with the instant vitriol that comes their way. I have more worryingly seen even senior colleagues modify their positions as articulated on social media because they want to be popular, right? And I think that journalists must never seek popularity. And it is surreal to me, some of you came right now, I was sitting with Raghu there, who wanted a selfie. I'm flattered because I like the fact that you like my work, but actually, at 45, if I'm going to take that moment seriously and think of myself as a personality, it is the moment when my journalism begins to die. And that applies as much to the hatred as it does to the fan moments, right? So it's only if you don't take the adulation seriously that you can actually avoid the hatred. If you take one seriously, you have to take the other seriously. Now to your point of how this works. I'll give you an example. It comes back to how social media can be used to amplify fake news and actually enable societies to remain more closed. So this I find deeply ironical because the whole point of social media is to democratize conversation, right? So if it's going to end up making authorities more closed and help that process, the exact opposite has happened. I went up to the border recently, and the border, as opposed to the line of control, is a much more accessible area to the common person because it's inhabited. Border villages have people. As long as there are people, you can't really cut off media access. This is when a lot of shelling was taking place from the Pakistani side. I went. The border security force, in one program, enabled my access, took me right to the fence, took me to a river. Everything that went on air was actually vetted and cleared by them for it being absolutely sort of safe to air, right? It was cleared by them in terms of not giving away any details that might compromise. And the other stories we did on our own through civilians and villages and so on. When I came back, I found that again, the right wing on Twitter had organized themselves and said, and started tagging the Home Ministry, the Border Security Force, the Army, the Defense Minister, and so on, and said, oh, how could you give her access? She's given away positions. Now this has become the most convenient way. You create a little smear, you create a little rumor, you create a little story, and then you start knocking on the doors of authorities who may not want you to be covering those stories anyway, right? I mean, does any government really want attention on these stories beyond a point? Maybe not, right? It doesn't suit them always. And that applies to all authorities, as you say. Now, you start doing this, you start making perfectly reasonable people in office actually either anxious or sense an opportunity to keep journalists at bay. And therefore, rather than authorities, I think there's a kind of lynch mob mentality online. And I'm not saying this is a victim at all. I'm not a victim. I'm perfectly capable of fighting these lynch mobs. I'm perfectly capable of standing my ground. I have never changed a story. I have never not gone on a story. I've never shied away from expressing an opinion. But this is the mechanism of what is happening, right? I can see it, and I can see younger people who are 5 years in, who are 4 years into their profession, actually getting scared by this.
Now, thank you for saying what you said about journalism and popularity, because I think that's something that viewers can be easily confused about, and the fact that you love a particular personality on TV can really confuse you about the quality of journalism that you're getting from them. But before this turns into two journalists complaining about the grim state of the media and how trolls are always getting on their backs, I want to lighten things up for a moment, and I want you to tell me what you love about journalism and what this profession or this vocation has done for you that makes you glad, and that gladness radiates through this book, no matter how difficult or grim the subjects are you're writing about.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I'm glad you asked it, because as I said, I do not sit here as a whiny victim. I really do love what I do, and the trolls will not change that, and have not changed that. I lament that I'm not able to do what I really love as much as I used to be, because the moment you do a daily program, you can't go out and report as much as you'd like. But what I love about it is that it allows me to be a witness to history as it unfolds. And I don't mean to sound grand or make myself important in some ways, but to be able to witness the war between India and Pakistan as it unfolded, to be a kind of bridge sometimes between people and areas that they can't get to the sheer adrenaline rush of it, to cross over into Egypt illegally with a young producer and a camera person not speaking a word of into Libya and Egypt, not knowing anybody, getting onto the back of a car and taking a ride with this complete stranger who didn't speak a word of English but gives us a Snickers bar and turns his radio to Michael Jackson because he thinks it might be some language that we can all understand. To sometimes make a difference. I don't think. I don't like that answer that I'm here to make a difference. I believe that the media's importance is highly overrated and is getting less and less and less in terms of being able to influence outcomes. But there is the odd occasion when you can change somebody's life, when you can help somebody, when you can create a conversation or ask uncomfortable questions, when by being unpopular, you still push to the center stage an issue that needs to be discussed, or sometimes by being popular, you do the same thing. Both popularity and unpopularity serve their own roles. And I like telling a story. It comes down to that. I think no matter how many talking heads and shouting people you create into TV screens, none of that will ever compete with just the artfulness needed to tell a story, sometimes